a 19th century Europe where England alone is ruled by humans. Werewolves rule Germany. Vampires rule Russia. Anarchists seek to bring about the end of the monarchy and instill socialism and protection for workers. And London has a special finishing school for young women, teaching them to be ladies-in-waiting to the aristocracy, protecting their ladies from monsters. Oh, and there's a murder mystery to solve. This is how Suzannah Rowntree begins the first entry in her Miss Sharp's Monsters series, Werewolf of Whitechapel. Hello, fellow book fiends. I'm Ilyria, a succubus who loves books, storytelling, writing, and all things bookish. For the third official Spooktober review, I'm reviewing Suzannah Rowntree's Werewolves of Whitechapel. Published in the late spring of 2021 by Fodder Press, Miss Sharp's Monsters begins with Suzannah Rowntree's Werewolf of Whitechapel. A killer stalks the grimy streets of Whitechapel, but Scotland Yard seems determined to turn a blind eye. With one look at her best friend's corpse, Elizabeth Sharp already knows the truth. The killer is a werewolf. No one important will hold a werewolf accountable. After all, the monsters rule Europe. Certainly, no one will believe a werewolf victim like Liz. The very scars that make her determined to investigate Sal's death also condemn her as the sort of woman who would sell her blood for easy money. As it happens, Liz's best hope for justice might well lie with her emotionally repressed employer, Princess May. Though the princess has connections with werewolf royalty, there's no one else Liz can turn to. Certainly, she can't risk trusting that irritatingly personable Inspector Short, who dogs her steps from the slums of Whitechapel to the palaces of St. James. But, as corpses mount, Liz discovers that no one is precisely who she thought. Not Sal, not herself, and certainly not the werewolf. Luckily, she has a few tricks hidden in the pockets of her trusty bloomers. I must begin my review with two apologies. First, to Miss Rowntree. I've had this book on my TBR shelf since it released, and I'm only now getting around to it. While that's pretty good actually for many of my avid book reader friends, I feel guilty since most of my slowness came from distractions caused by my own ADHD. My second apology is to myself because this book was amazing. When I picked up this book, I expected something similar to a Victorian-inspired gaslamp fantasy version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, monster hunting with pretty clothes. But it was so much more. I'm going to start my review with what kept me hesitant to read it. The first-person point of view. I have nothing against a first-person POV, but I find it easy for me to lose the sense of the character's voice. Too many authors use it poorly or have indistinct character voices, making reading books in this POV unappealing to me. And as I'm sitting here recording this, I begin to honestly wonder how much of my dislike from this POV stems from poorly written fan fiction I consumed and at times wrote in the days of LiveJournal and the early days of fanfiction.net. But that is a musing for another day. No? Yes, I think so. Normally, I give a first-person POV novel one chapter before deciding to continue or to DNF this book. And as I sip my rose petal black tea while recording, I come back to two things. First, Elizabeth Sharp, the POV character, has a unique voice filled with period-appropriate slang and vocabulary. The research Miss Rowntree did to craft the character's voice aids in the realism and believability and likability of the point of view. Second, the novel states that we are not reading a diary or an account day by day of the happenings, but a memoir, a genre where memory and its fallibility play a role in shaping the story. Together, these two little things assuaged any fear or complaint about the POV I may have had, and gave me a character with a believable voice and a point of view that I wanted to follow around. So, I would call that a double win. As I said, I expected this to be more of a gaslamp urban fantasy monster hunter romp, but it was a thoughtful and deep mystery laden with political intrigue and social commentary that is even more resonant now than it would have been in the Victorian world in which the story is set. This may have been a shorter story were it set in the modern era, but the social strictures and norms and politeness of Victorian era England as part of a Europe filled with and ruled by monsters slowed the pacing set by the character's voice and her own impatience to get things done, and the short chapters to a point where all felt natural, enjoyable, and planned. I never felt like events were passing me by at a pace where I lost track of events and characters, and that's a good thing. And when we have a mystery to follow, especially a Victorian-era mystery, I become apprehensive, fearing the writer will use Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's model of never let the reader know what the detective knows or what the detective is thinking. I don't enjoy that. However, Rowntree followed more of a cozy mystery formula, giving me slightly less information than Miss Sharp had, so I always felt like I could solve the murder, if given enough time. That said, there were still twists and surprises waiting throughout the book. The chapters were short, perhaps a bit too short for my taste, but that is a minor complaint, no? Chapter length is an artificial, arbitrary construct that changes with genre and time period. But it is something that I noticed. I have previously mentioned how Elizabeth Sharp is a wonderful, believable, and engaging character. I can't fully say that for many of the other characters. Were it not for Sharp's emotional connection to her friend Sal, who, admittedly, became a corpse very early in the story, and to the very repressed Princess May, I probably wouldn't have given either of them a second thought. They weren't bad characters. They weren't poorly written characters. I just never got the sense of who they were as people. But that's a limitation of the first-person point of view, is it not? I'm only inside one person's head, thus I can't know their innermost thoughts, fears, desires, and dreams of anyone but that one POV character. I don't get a sense of who the other characters are, only of who they present themselves to be, filtered through the interpretation of the POV character. That's probably appropriate for a mystery or for horror or any genre where limited information adds to the tension, thus making it a bit more realistic than being able to jump into the heads of multiple characters. But it's one of the things that third person and multiple POV characters offer, allowing us to see and get to know and understand and believe other characters. And I miss that. But overall, the mystery was still good. Miss Sharp was still engaging. Her sarcasm, her wit. I've mentioned before how I love characters like that. So I really did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the writing. And as you can tell, my quibbles with it are a bit minor. If you enjoy a good mystery, one with political intrigue, social relevance, and monsters, if you enjoy Victorian era styled storytelling, fashion, slang from an author who does her research, if you enjoy a smart and sassy female lead solving the mysteries, you will likely enjoy Werewolf of Whitechapel, as I know I did. Thus, I give this book 4.5 imps. Thank you for joining me, fellow book fiends. Next week, I will review Suzannah K's Phantom, a book suggested by Lee Ward, the partner of my webhuman. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and if you have any books you want me to read and review, comment below with the name and author. As the autumn nights grow longer, may you find them filled with the great pleasures of long nights of reading. I will see you next week. Goodbye.